This podcast is brought to you by Contessa Digital.
So I have a client who has not been out on the dating scene for years. She is recently divorced, and because she was very nervous about dating, I thought, hey, why don't we have like a mock date? So, like, pretend that you're out with me, ask me the same questions, have the same conversations with me that you would have with a man on a first date. So she thought that was a good idea. We get together, we have this mock date, and I immediately knew that it was going to be a terrible experience when she goes on an actual date with a man. And here's why. I told her to treat me as if I were the guy that she was going on a date with, a potential date. And she immediately made it an interrogation. Look, before I was a dating coach full time, I was a journalist. So I get asking a lot of questions and I love asking a lot of questions. But this definitely felt like some type of CIA, FBI, military investigation. And I was like, hey, you were going to have to cool it. So, in the spirit of that, let's talk about how to ask questions the right way on a first date. So, my name is Keisha Rice. If we've never met before, if you've never listened to me or watched me, I am a dating coach. I'm also a hypnotherapist. I help ambitious women learn how to heal their unhealthy relationship patterns so that they can attract healthy, cherished romantic love. And again, I want to talk about how to properly ask questions on a first date. So, we're going to talk about three different things that are really important. Number one way to keep it from being an interrogation is to be a little bit more vulnerable and to talk about yourself and then gauge his reaction to those things. So, if family is a really important value to you, talk about your family and then see how he responds. See if he responds with, oh, yeah, I'm really close to my family, or if he just shuts the subject down because he doesn't want to talk about it, or because he doesn't really have a lot of family. You want to know that in the beginning, but instead of interrogating him about that, just make it about you. Talk about your family and get that response. Talk about, vacations that you've gone on and see if he's just as interested in traveling as you are. If he comes back with, oh, yeah, I've been to these places too, or, this is where I like to travel, this is where my last vacation was, or if he tells you that he is a homebody who doesn't really like to go anywhere, because maybe that's a deal breaker for you. In the case of my marriage, my husband is not much of a traveler, so I travel solo. But if you are looking for a travel companion in your marriage, then you want to know from the jump if this person has that same value. So by talking about your values and then just being relaxed and seeing how he responds and letting that flow, it feels much less like like an interrogation. And if you listen closely, you will find out whether or not your values align with his. Number two is to ask better questions about the question. So often when we meet people, we have this tendency to just ask the same generic questions over and over again. What do you do for a living? What's your favorite color? That type of thing. And instead of asking the question, like, what do you do for a living? Ask better questions that really allow you to get a better idea of who this person is while answering the question. So instead of what do you do for a living, you can ask someone, so what was the most exciting part of your day today? And maybe it will be work related and they will talk about something that they did at work and you will get that answer. You can also ask, what are your favorite and least favorite things about your job? Um, your career, are you finding your work very fulfilling right now? And make this natural. So if you're on the date and it's at night and he says, yeah, I just got off from work, that would be a great way to ask that question, um, of what was the most exciting part of your day, or is your work something that you find to be very satisfying, right? So ask better questions about the question. So even again, if you, instead of asking, you know, how many brothers and sisters do you have, for example, you can ask about, like, what was your favorite childhood memory with your family? You could ask if his family has any fun traditions. So, especially right about now, as I'm recording this, it is the end of November and we're about to get into December. So it's the holiday season. So it's a very natural question to ask, like, did you have any fun holiday traditions growing up? And then number three is making sure that your questions are intentional and they're about your needs. Um, and making sure that they are not about needing to be with him specifically. So, one, this is how you let a man know that you are a high value woman and you're not settling, you're not desperate. You want the right relationship, not just any relationship. So, in this case, you will talk about how these are the things that are important about me. So, back to that whole, talking about yourself, you can talk about pop culture, TV shows that you've watched, movies that you've watched. And, that's a pretty generic first date question. Have you seen any good movies lately? What TV shows are you obsessed with? And it gives you an idea into their personality, like whether they like horror movies or comedy, for example. But also you can use that as an example to talk about, like, yeah, there was this reality show that I watched the other day. Like, I love reality TV, but I was just so shocked that this one girl on the show allowed her boyfriend to do this, because when I'm in a relationship, this is something that I would never allow. And you could again make it about, these are things that I don't allow in relationships, and you can see what his reaction to those things are. So this is a quick podcast because it's the holiday season. I know that you guys have other things to do than to listen to me, but I want you to think about these things, to talk about yourself, to be patient with his answers and really listen to his reactions and how he responds, to ask better questions than the original question, and to make it about your needs. And when you're making it about your needs, you know your needs, because as we've talked about in previous episodes, you have a love list and you are evaluating that love list before you go out on dates. After you have your date, because you've asked these questions, be able to really discern whether or not this is somebody who's worth having a second date with. So, happy dating, because the holiday season is a great time to meet new people. And I will talk to you soon. Love you.
Hey there. So you made it all the way to the end of the episode, which means I have two things to say. One, thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. And two, you like me. You really like me. So I would appreciate it if you would show that like by subscribing to this podcast so that more people can hear about it and enjoy it as much as you do. And if you want to know more about any of the links that I mentioned on this episode or any guests that I've had, be sure to go to KeshiaRice.com/links. That's KeshiaRice.com/links. I can't wait to talk to you again in the next episode. So see you then.